Testing 1, 2, 3. Seems okay. Okay, just let me know when we're ready to begin.
We can begin, Bhante. You can begin, Bhante.
Okay, I'm going to unmute. Okay, good. Oh, I see. So I'm muted, but they could hear me. Okay. Okay, so good morning, everybody. And so let us begin the program today. We could begin 3 times just with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today we are continuing now with our meditation retreat on the 4 protective meditations. And yesterday, all day, we established the foundation through the meditation on the qualities of the Buddha, the Buddhanussati. And now we move to the 2nd protective meditation. This is metta bhavana, the meditative development of loving kindness. And so the Pali word here is, as you all know, the Pali word is metta.
Bhante, good morning. This is Kaiti. I'm not sure if you like to share your screen.
I'm looking for the file that I want to share.
Yeah, you can share the screen.
Yeah, I had opened it. Now I don't see it. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the practice that we're doing is called the meditation on loving kindness, metta. And the word metta, we translate, or I prefer to translate as loving kindness, but the word itself originally has the meaning of friendliness. So it's based on the word metta, which means friend. But in my mind, the word friendliness is a little too worldly or mundane or ordinary to capture the meaning of metta. So I use loving kindness, which seems to capture two aspects of metta. One is the inner side of metta, which is a feeling of, I call this, of loving concern for the well-being and happiness of all sentient beings. I don't like to translate metta as love. Some use love, but the word love brings over has so many different meanings, so many different connotations, which I think would distort the meaning of metta. But when we say loving in loving kindness, it means, I call this a very deep, loving concern for the good of others. And this concern manifests in kindness, in kind actions of body, kind ways of speaking, and kind thoughts. Some like to translate metta as goodwill or benevolence, but in my mind, that's a little bit dry and maybe cool. It doesn't capture the emotional aspect of metta, which is a feeling of deep, loving concern for the well-being and happiness of others. And we find in the Metta Sutta, which we recite in the evening, there's a line or a verse which indicates the quality of metta. Mata yata niyamputang ayusa ekaputang anurake evampi sababhutesu manasang bhavaye aparimanang. So just as a mother would protect her only son with her own life, so one should develop a mind, a boundless mind, towards all sentient beings. So that is something like the quality of metta, a loving concern for the well-being, welfare, the good and happiness and welfare of all beings. And so to begin the practice of metta, the way it's often done, and this seems to be an addition which has come in the West. I don't recall seeing this in the standard canonical and commentarial explanations of metta, but one begins with a thought we call the mental act of forgiveness. And so we think of all of the people who may have harmed us. During our life, people who might have spoken rudely to us, who have injured us, plotted against you. And instead of retaining these thoughts of hurt and resentment, one formulates in one's own mind the thought, I hereby forgive all those who have harmed me in any way. So let us all do that together. You don't have to think of specific individuals, but just think through the whole course of my life. Anyone who has harmed me, injured me, spoken ill of me in any way, I hereby forgive them, and towards them I bear no ill will or resentment. And then we bring to mind the fact that we ourselves, whether intentionally or unintentionally, may have harmed other people. And so now we want to offer to all of them, through the whole course of our life, from childhood to the present, a great universal apology. And so together let us think, if I have harmed anyone, whether intentionally or unintentionally, in any way I might have harmed them, I hereby apologize and ask for your forgiveness. Okay, so this unburdens the mind of any kind of lingering resentment towards those who have harmed us, or any sense of guilt or discomfort because we have harmed others. Then one proceeds to reflect on the drawback or dangers in hatred. I'm going to explore this in more detail in the talk this evening, but basically you consider that when anger arises in the mind, anger and hatred, it's very unpleasant. It feels like your mind is on fire, or like the mind is weighed down by a heavy burden. And when you give way to anger, even if you just bear it inside and look at other people with hatred in your eyes, it creates tension, conflict, and friction, which is very disagreeable. And so that is some of the drawbacks in hatred. And the antidote for hatred is metta, loving kindness. So that is why it's a protective meditation, because it helps to eliminate any kind of traces of hatred that are inhabiting the mind. And when we develop loving kindness regularly and persistently, then it prevents hatred from arising in the mind. It's a protective shield over the mind that prevents hatred from coming in. And loving kindness is also the root of many other virtues. So loving kindness gets expressed as generosity, morality, observing the precepts so we don't kill, steal, sexual misconduct, and so on, out of a loving concern for others. Loving kindness helps us to maintain patience. And within the meditative framework, loving kindness is considered a subject, a meditation subject, with the capacity to bring samadhi, profound concentration. And so the Buddha speaks in the suttas, he speaks of, it's called metta ceto vimutti. That's the liberation of the mind through loving kindness. This isn't the permanent liberation of the mind. It's not the liberation achieved through wisdom, but it's a temporary liberation in which the mind can enter deeply into samadhi and experience that bliss and freedom of a fully absorbed mind, not overrun by any of the hindrances or defilements. And then the samadhi gained through loving kindness can be used as a basis for developing wisdom. I will probably touch on that in the talk this evening. And then this wisdom will be the means for eradicating the defilements and gaining the permanent liberation. And then for those who have pledged or vowed to follow the bodhisattva path, then loving kindness is one of the roots of the foundations of the bodhisattva path, because loving kindness together with compassion are the roots of bodhicitta, which is the aspiration, the determination to attain Buddhahood for the welfare of the world. So whether one is following the path of liberation,
I think you've muted yourself.
understood the method, that it involves, I call these the two pillars for developing loving kindness. One pillar are the recipients of loving kindness, and the other pillar is the formula for developing loving kindness. Okay, so the recipients are the people towards whom one develops loving kindness. And the ancient teachers who have elaborated on the meditation of loving kindness have arranged these. First, they've determined a number of categories, and those categories are based on the relation of the people to oneself. And the categories unfold in a deliberate sequence. So the sequence is first, we develop loving kindness. Each of us developed a loving kindness towards ourself. Then we choose a dear and respected person, such as a teacher or a benefactor. And in this case, in this intensified practice, we're choosing one person from each category. So this is different from the way I explained the loving kindness on Wednesday evening, where I say you could take 2, 3, or 4 people of each category. But now we want to develop it more intensely. So we take one person, and all of the people chosen have to be people who are presently alive. You could have good thoughts towards people who have deceased, but the loving kindness really only becomes effective when it's directed towards a living person. And so you choose first a respected person who has been a benefactor, a teacher, could be a parent, an elder friend, towards whom you have a little distance in the relationship. So that's the first person. The second person should be a very dear and beloved friend. Here, this is from years ago, so I said not a romantic partner, but now my thinking has changed. I mean, if you're married for a long time, the husband could take the wife could take the husband. But if you're like a young person just hooked up with a girlfriend, don't choose the girlfriend. Or if you're just connected to a young man, don't choose a young man, because then the romantic feelings get sort of mixed up with the loving kindness. But people who have been married a long time, the feeling sort of matures, and so it can turn into a feeling of loving kindness. Okay, so we have the dearly beloved friend. Then we have an acquaintance. This can be a neighbor or a colleague, somebody you don't really have a personal relationship with, but you just see from time to time. Maybe just exchange some pleasantries with them. You know, how are you today? I'm fine. It's a sunny day today, or, oh, we're expecting rain in the evening. Okay, bye-bye, see you later, that kind of person. And actually now I would identify the acquaintance person and the neutral person, so we won't take the neutral person separately. And then the last one, and we're not going to bring in the last one in the first sessions of practice, this is the hostile person. So you have to think now in your own mind, choosing a dear and respected person, a very dear person, and then an acquaintance that we will consider the neutral person. So make those decisions before we start the practice. Okay, now sometimes people have the question, why do you begin developing loving kindness towards ourselves? Don't we naturally love ourselves? Well, usually what we have naturally towards ourselves is a kind of egotistic love. but we want to transform that egotistic love into a feeling of real, genuine love for ourselves. Not that narrow, selfish, greedy, I want praise, I want offerings, I want high position, but a real concern that we should be well and happy, safe, and that we will flourish. And then we use that feeling of love towards ourselves to recognize that every other human being, in fact, every living being, also wants to be well and happy and safe. And so we use our own concern for our well-being and happiness as the basis for recognizing that every person and every living being shares that same desire. And that helps us to extend the loving kindness to others. So these are the persons. And then we have the formula. And the formula is a verbal statement that we use and turn over in the mind in relation to each recipient of metta in order to generate the feeling of loving kindness. So I've come up with a formula which I found over the years useful for myself. And so this is a formula we'll be using. Maybe if you're familiar with other formulas, you could use them when you're practicing on your own, but we should all be practicing on the same page. So we'll be following the same formula. So this is the formula with X representing the recipient. May X be well. And by well, as I say, we mean good health of body and mind. May X be happy. That is wishing that X will enjoy true inner happiness and peace of mind. Wishing X to be safe. This is very important today in this age of the coronavirus and a lot of violence in the outer world. So wishing that they will be free from illness, injury, and distress. And then may all of X's good purposes, good aims, good undertakings in life be fulfilled. So this is, in effect, wishing that they will have a meaningful life, a rewarding life, that their various projects will be fulfilled. So that is the formula that we'll be using. Okay, now what we're going to be doing, I will be doing this as a guided meditation initially, and I'm going to come to each person and then just recite the 4 phrases of the formula, and then pause for a few minutes. And in that pause, you work on applying the words of the formula to the person that is chosen as the recipient of loving kindness. And it may be, so the aim is to arouse in the heart the feeling that corresponds to the words. So when you say or think, may X be well, is healthy, then in your heart you generate a real wish for that person to be well, to be healthy. And similarly, when may X be happy, you want to generate a real wish, I call this a soft and warm wish for the person to be happy. But it often happens that despite our use of the formula, the feeling doesn't arise. Don't worry about this. I make a distinction between what I call the artificial loving kindness and genuine loving kindness. And artificial loving kindness is a good and necessary stage. That is where we are formulating in our heart, in our mind, the benevolent wish for the well-being and happiness of others. So even if the feeling is not arising, by turning over the words of the formula and formulating the thoughts expressed by the formula, we are gradually clearing away the barriers of the heart and creating an opening for the real, genuine feeling of loving kindness to arise. Like in my own experience, when I first started doing the meditation of loving kindness, back in my early days, I had a really angry temperament or resentful temperament. So I used to get very easily feel a kind of smothering anger and resentment towards other people. And then I realized that to counteract that, I would have to do the meditation of loving kindness. And this was the days when I was living in Sri Lanka, my early days as a monk. And so I would be practicing, and it would just seem so dry and boring. I would just go through the words of the formulas that I was using, taking the different people. Nothing was happening. And then suddenly, just one day, I think it was an uncle of mine that I brought to mind. And then I'm in Sri Lanka, I thought of him in the United States and was formulating the words of loving kindness towards him. And then suddenly the sort of warm current of loving kindness started bubbling up in the heart. And I realized that this is what metta means for the first time. And so once that arose, and I could recognize that it was because I was doing that dry and boring preparatory work, even though it seemed to be fruitless, but I was opening up a pathway for that loving kindness that had been buried deep in the heart to find an opening and come bubbling to the surface. Okay, so with this, maybe we could just stand up and stretch and bend a little bit just for a minute to dispel before we sit down and start the first session. Just to bend and stretch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then stretch out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then run a little track. Okay, now we could sit. I remember our friend Shin Kong Fasher would have us floating around the meditation hall like birds. Okay, so now we can take our meditation seats. Should be a nice, comfortable position. Okay, first settle into the felt sense of the body. Then let the mind settle in the region of the heart. Let it settle in the heart chakra, which is the base for developing the loving kindness. And now we bring to mind the image of our own face. We're going to develop the loving kindness towards ourselves. And so we develop towards ourselves the thoughts, the wish, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be safe, and may all my good purposes be fulfilled. Okay, work on this on your own now for about 5 minutes. Just turn the expressions over. We devote a little time to each phrase, trying to generate the feeling that corresponds to the words. Okay, now we move to the dear and respected person, the one who has been a benefactor, a guide, a helper in some way. Could be a parent, but should be a person still alive. And see that person in your mind's eye. And then generate towards them the wish, may this good person be well. May that person be happy. May that person be safe. May all that person's good purposes be fulfilled. Continue now to work on that. Okay, now you move over to the very dear person, very close friend. See that person in your mind's eye, and towards them generate the wish, may this good person be well. May this person be truly happy. May they be safe from all harm and suffering. And may all of that person's good purposes, good aims be fulfilled. Okay, now you choose you call this the mere acquaintance, a person that you just have a very casual relationship with, like a neighbor or a colleague. And see that person in your mind's eye and recognize that that person is a full human being just like yourself. Their life is most precious to them. So on that basis, generate the wish, may this good person be well. May that person be happy, truly and deeply happy. May that person be safe from all harm and danger. And may all of that person's good purposes, good undertakings in life be fulfilled. Okay, now come back to the felt sense of the body. And take a few deep, mindful breaths in, out, in, out. And then you can open your eyes and relax. And again, as usual, you rub the palms over the face. Top of the head, back of the head, back of the neck. And come down the lower back, and you can massage the buttocks. And then down to the knees. And if you've been sitting cross-legged, then you can come down to the feet and the toes. And then we're going to do a session, about 10-minute session of the walking meditation. And remember what we do in the walking meditation. We are mindful of each step, mindful of taking the step, and mindful of the touch of the foot on the ground and the sensation of the foot making contact with the ground. So mindful of right step, right touch, mindful of left step, left touch. And we continue for about 10 minutes. And when you hear the chime, then you return to your seat. So we'll be back in our seats, let us say at 9:43. And then we'll do another session of the loving kindness meditation. Okay, we will go through now another cycle of the loving kindness with the same 4 persons: oneself, a dear and respected person, a very dear person, and then the acquaintance or neutral person. So take your comfortable sitting position. And then let the mind settle in the region of the heart. And in that space, see your own image, smiling and happy, and then generate towards yourself the warm, sincere wish, may I be well, that is healthy and strong. May I be happy, experiencing real, deep happiness. May I be safe from all harm and danger. And may all of my good purposes be fulfilled. Okay, continue to work on that on your own. Okay, now move over to the dear and respected person. And towards that person, generate the wish, may this good person be well. May this person be happy. May this person be safe. And may all of their good purposes be fulfilled. And try to use all 4 phrases, but sometimes you might want to focus on one phrase a little more than the others. But try to get all 4 phrases in, and if you finish one cycle within the allotted time, start again at the beginning with well, then happy, then safe, and then all good purposes be fulfilled. Okay, now you turn to the very dear person, dear, very close friend. Towards that person, you generate the wish, may this dear person be well. May they be happy, truly, deeply happy. May they be safe from all harm and danger. And may all of their good purposes, good activities be fulfilled. Now you could bring in the mere acquaintance, the neutral person. See that person in your mind's eye, recognizing that this is a human being just like yourself. And then generate towards that person the wish, may this good person be well and good health. May they be truly happy. May they be safe from all harm and danger. And may all of their good purposes be fulfilled. Okay, now come back to the felt sense of the body. Take a few mindful deep breaths. And then you can relax and open the eyes. And then we'll take a break until 10:30. So at 10:30, we'll be back in our seats.